Hi, I'm Robbin Miller, host of Miller Chat. Today's guest is Stephen Sadow. Correct? Did I say that right?
Sure.
From Congressional Renee Shalom in Westboro and Sabina Terrades from the Wellspring United Methodist Church. We're going to talk about the program called STOP. Not the stop sign, but a program called STOP. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on my show after the blizzard last week, and now we're talking as the heavy rain falls upon us. Let's hope it doesn't fall through.
Hopefully not.
Well, welcome to my show, and thank you for coming out here to talk about the program. So, to no further ado, why don't we talk about what is STOP?
STOP is a program directed at middle school students. It's a program with two goals, interrelated goals. Mm-hmm. One is to have students learn to deal easily and freely with students from other backgrounds, from other religious backgrounds, from other racial backgrounds, from other places, just different kids. And the second is related to the question of bullying. It's not so much that we want kids who've been bullied, though we love to have them, but it's also to teach kids how to stand up to bullying, how to help other kids, or if they find themselves in that position, to know what to do. We do this through 7 2-hour meetings in consecutive Thursday nights, starting February 1st. And the meetings are structured. There are continual activities, which you can speak to. The kids are exhausted by the time we're done with it. But at the end of the 7 2-hour breaks, or 2-hour periods, with some pizza thrown in, they leave the program ecstatic that they have learned so much about how to deal with difficult subjects. Okay.
Yes, we call it a leadership program because as Stephen was mentioning, we teach middle schoolers to stand up, not to be passive bystanders when somebody's being bullied or stereotyped or so on, but to actually do something about it in a safe way. We started the program based on religious tolerance, but it's changed quite a bit. Now we address any type of discrimination and stereotyping from race and religion, as Stephen said, to cultural background, disabilities, physical appearance, sexual orientation, and so on. So it covers quite a few things. The sessions, actually, we do skip the school vacation, the February vacation, and there is one more session, the 8th session at the end, which is a celebratory session. It's a potluck. We give, the kids graduate, and it's a lot of fun. As Stephen mentioned, the sessions are pretty intense. They are not difficult per se, but they are full of activities, full of different things. We start with a pizza dinner for half an hour, so the children can socialize and get to know each other. And after that, we have a number of activities. We show videos, and each session is hosted in a different place. So we have basically 8 different places. You want to address that, Stephen?
Sure. We cover a number of faith-based institutions. B'nai Shalom in Westboro, Trinity Congregational in Northborough, St. Mary's in Shrewsbury, the Alhambra, what are we doing? Al-Huda Academy also in Shrewsbury, isn't it?
Well, Alhambra is in Shrewsbury, and Al-Huda and the Worcester Islamic Center are in Worcester.
And the India Center also on the edge of Worcester. And we also do 2 sessions at the Shrewsbury Public Library, which have to do with subjects that are not faith-related, but more mental health related or bullying related or things of that nature. So it's a traveling show, and the kids get to see the worship places of kids from very, very different backgrounds than their own. And then also they're in neutral territory, a couple of the sessions being in the library. Besides the students who are actually taking the course, there are teenage facilitators is the word we use. We somehow have to make up names for the jobs. They're teenage facilitators, all of whom have gone through the program, all of whom have grown up with the program. The program actually has a 3-year cycle to it. So any student could do 1, 2, or 3 years. But in order to be a facilitator, they need to have done at least 1 year earlier on. So they're quite familiar with the mode in which it's done, though the skits and the small group activities and large group activities do change every 3 years. It is cyclical in that sense. So the structure doesn't change, but the content shifts.
Well, you know, for bullying, school bullying, I mean, I heard of school bullying when I went to school in the 70s. My parents are from the Bronx, and they went to school in the late 40s and the 50s in the Bronx, New York. And having gone through the public school system for New York City schools, of course, in the 70s, we had the issues of race riots. Not to say there weren't racial overtones before the 70s. I mean, we know what happened in Boston and Bunker Hill in the 70s, too, with bus integration. But bullying, the concept of school bullying, the issue is still the same. People pick on you for whatever reason there is. But in my day, and I'm not saying it was always the right way, we just took care of it ourselves. If in elementary school, if you were being picked on, either the parents got together and talked about it, and they were civil. I mean, they were tough, but the point is there was no worrying, you know, maybe like it is today. Or the kids took it upon themselves to defend themselves. And the whole concept has evolved over time because of more diversity. People of all backgrounds, all cultures, all abilities coming from all over the world. And the whole dynamics have changed.
Exactly.
And I don't know if school bullying, I think it changed in Massachusetts when they developed the law in 2000-something.
It did to some extent, but I think if we think that bullying is not an issue in Shrewsbury, we are definitely fooling ourselves. First of all, yes, I mean, bullying, when I was a middle schooler, it wasn't as well talked about as it is now, but my years in middle school were hell. And I really don't want that for my children.
Of course.
And then, of course, as you said, diversity in Shrewsbury and in the whole area has been increasing. So, and the situation in the world is quite different. You have children that are much more open to their sexual orientation earlier. You have children, young Muslim girls that go to school with a hijab. So there are more ways of seeing different dark-skinned people. When you used to grow in mostly Caucasian neighborhood, you didn't see diversity.
No.
So now you have all, and we know that diversity creates fear. Fear creates prejudice, discrimination, stereotyping. And that's actually the way the program was created. The program was actually created in Sudbury 25 years ago when swastikas were found in one of the Sudbury middle schools on the bathroom walls. And at the time, a Jewish congregation and a Christian congregation got together to create this program. And it got so popular, so it's been running for 25 years. It got so popular that actually it received an award from President Clinton at the time. Now, what happened with Shrewsbury is that we had a young woman here who had a middle schooler, and during a birthday party, her son was told by other kids, Muslim, he's a Muslim, well, all Muslims are terrorists, and he was heartbroken. He came home heartbroken, and the mother heard about the program in Sudbury. Her son did the program for a couple of years. She came back to Shrewsbury and said, why don't we start? That was 9 years ago. And actually, at the beginning, it was faith-related. So I'm a member of Wellspring United Methodist. Wellspring was one of the founding congregations with B'nai Shalom, with St. Mary's, with the Worcester Islamic Center. So we started with that, and then, as I said, we've been expanding to other type of stereotyping. But we see many, many issues in the school system. And once again, if we think there is no such thing as prejudice and bullying in Shrewsbury, we are blind, or we want to be blind.
Yeah. But I think it's the issue of anything that happens in these suburban areas. The last 50 years or so, I think that's still the denial. Because they don't want to, politically speaking, a rich town, a rich city, I don't mean to stereotype for all towns and cities across the United States or across the world, but I was from Bethpage, Long Island, and I moved there in 1977. I moved to a very bigoted, prejudiced junior high, because by then it was called junior high. I went to JFK Junior High. I came from a city environment in Public School 41 where we had integration, so you had to learn to get along, okay? And I remember I was in 7th grade, and I remember talking to the kids about Martin Luther King. And they all looked at me like, who's that? And I learned about Martin Luther King when I was in 3rd grade. And by the time I was in 5th grade, I was able to write about him just like that. And I remembered one 12-year-old kid, and I won't say the derogatory name on TV because I'm not being politically correct, but he called me the N-word. He says, you're an N-lover. And I remember going home, and I was telling my parents about it. They said, why did you say anything? I said, you know, Mom, I know we're not being brought up that way, and I know that you're concerned for my safety, because Mother's back in the 70s, you know, you had to fit in. I was Jewish too. I was Jewish in a white lily Christian town. You know, we wanted to fit in, and fitting in is not causing waves. But anyway, I told Mom, I said I did the right thing. And I never forget that, how somebody did call me that term. And I said, you know, and I had because I'm very intuitive, and I said, you know, Long Island people, especially Bethpage, they're going to have to face the reality that we are a diverse world. So I went to SUNY Albany, State University of New York at Albany, and they had some racial incidents after the Boston Red Sox lost to the New York Mets in the '86 World Series. I'm sorry, I'm New York. I actually have a pennant in my son's playroom that has the Mets winning the World Series.
No, I had the great I grew up in White Plains, actually.
Yes, I know White Plains.
And I had the great fortune in the 50s, this was late 50s, of a new elementary school being opened closer to my house than the one I'd been attended. So I was transferred to this. And this new elementary school was completely integrated way before its time. That's great. We had all sorts of kids. And all sorts of economic levels. We didn't have any rich people, but we had a variety of middle class and poor people. And it was, in retrospect, one of the great things that happened in my lifetime, because it made me aware that it was easy to get along with these people.
Right.
And getting back to STOP, that's what they learn. They learn how easy it is to get along with kids of your own age when you're in a safe environment.
But they learn about acceptance as well. I think that's extremely important, because even if we forget about the race issue or the religious issue, now you have, nowadays, special needs children are very much integrated in the school system.
Yes.
My daughter has autism. She's in a regular classroom. However, they are different. They do suffer from prejudice and stereotyping and all of that. So that's another thing that we have to remember. It's everywhere. It can be physical appearance, it can be anything. And I think my daughter is going to join us. She's in 6th grade. It's going to be her first year at STOP. And I think it's going to be a good experience for her, but also for the other children in the so-called normal children, to see a girl that is not like them, that looks, I mean, she's white, but she's heavy, and she has autism, and she's different. And this is why it is so important. The program is very, very important.
Definitely. I mean, based on what you're saying of the STOP program, it's not only pizza, but they're interacting and they're realizing that they're just alike. They all have a purpose in life. They all have feelings. They all have thoughts, right? They all have dreams. And
on each, they work around tables, around tables quite a bit. And on each table, there is a laminated piece of paper that says "ouch" with an exclamation point. And if any of the kids say something that anyone else in the group feels is derogatory, they can pick up that card and say "ouch," and then the group has to stop and find out what the issue was. Usually they can move on rather rapidly. And sometimes the ouches aren't correct. I mean, they misread something. But yeah, they're part of the ongoing process in STOP is to make you more aware.
right.
And sometimes it can be uncomfortable. Last year, the session I actually hosted at the library, at the beginning of the session, each place where the session is held can give a little speech for 10 minutes about their faith or
Okay,
what they
that's
do
nice.
and so on. So at the library, I talked about hate and the problems with hate in the world. And I used some of them pretty graphic PowerPoint slides showing 9/11, showing the Holocaust. And it gets sensitive because you do have Muslim kids in there, because you have Jewish kids in there, and so on. And this year, interestingly enough, we are adding at the library, it's going to be, we are including addictions in the mix now.
Oh, good.
Because same thing, Shrewsbury is not exempt, the whole area is not exempt, and addictions don't discriminate, so it's not fair discriminating, like we call alcoholics bums or whatever,
Yes.
when there are lots of things that are going on behind the walls of the Shrewsbury colonials. So we want the kids to be a little more aware of that and knowing that they will be exposed eventually, and they should not think that they are different, that we are all in the same situation.
I think the term white privilege gets people really angry. And I think your group is basically educating, making people aware about how, each community, each family, each school, they have their own values. Community, especially community homes, because kids learn it from the home or they learn it from their friends. Obviously, what's going on in United States-wise, they learn it from that too, that leadership too. But like I said, it comes from the home, comes from the friends, and your group, has a good mission to help break that. Break that cycle, break the hate cycle, break the stereotype, break the prejudices before it's too late. Because this is a good age to get them.
Those are exactly the topics that are pursued in an order through the 7 sessions, starting with stereotyping, I believe, is the first one, and growing, if that's the right verb, going from pretty hard to harder to hardest, and then by then asking them how to solve the problems that were thrown at them, and they do it just lovely.
But at the same time, it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's not intense and serious. They do skits, they do a lot of activities that are a lot of fun. Icebreakers and,
getting back to when I went to SUNY Albany and they had racial incidents, what happened from there, it developed, and that incident at the college was just a snap picture of what was going on in other colleges. So in the late 80s, early 90s, they started the cultural competency movement, where professionals had to be trained on cultures. So it was race, culture, religion, ethnicity, but they left out disability. So moving forward 20-something years now in the modern era, now disability, transgender is now part of that. So it has evolved. And usually, maybe you can agree, these movements usually start either from an incident or something, or some event. Do you agree what you hear?
Well, at least they're get into the public eye. As you were saying right at the beginning, bullying has gone on since the beginning of time.
Of course, beginning of time.
But that it's happening in our town, whichever our town happens to be,
Right.
you deny it and then you can't deny it anymore. And let me shift things a little bit. I was attracted to STOP. This is only my second year with STOP. And when I heard about it, and curiously enough, I read about it on a flyer in the men's locker room at the YMCA on the Shrewsbury, Westboro line. And I said, this is for me. Because I'm retired now, but for my entire career of 40-odd years, I was a professor of Latin American culture, literature, art, and culture. And I have spent a great deal of time in Latin America and working with Latinos in the United States. I am not one of them. I am not Catholic. I am not one of the Pentecostal movements that are in Latin America, but I know a huge amount about them. I'm fluent, not only fluent in Spanish, I taught Spanish for 25 years over the 40 years. So all my career, I was in the position of being from one culture, teaching about another culture to students from a third culture, more or less. Of course, there were Hispanics that took the course and whatever, but yeah, the idea that there are so many similarities, even though there are differences, that you can see other patterns, and those other patterns make sense, even though you don't really want to convert, but you see them as quite viable ways of going through life, and you come to respect them.
Yeah, I see your program as, when I look at Brene Brown, she's a famous professor she's known as a shame professor. She studied shame, vulnerability at University of Houston. She talked about how not fitting in, but belonging. And what I see from your group, you're not teaching people how to fit in. We all, everybody's coming from a different way of life. And you're not saying this is how you fit into America. It's like when the international students, a friend of mine who came from Canada, when she came to SUNY Albany in the 80s, they said they had to go to a class with the other international students and learn how to fit in as an American. Take showers, brush your teeth. It's 1988. Okay, fast forward. But I see your group as belonging, honoring differences, sharing similarities. I see that. I see more of that belongingness. You're not teaching them how to fit in. You're teaching them all to belong, to be accepting of themselves and others.
And to embrace everybody else's
embracing.
difference.
You're embracing.
And the world is changing. One of our sponsor organizations is Accentria in Worcester.
I know them.
They take care of refugees basically, except lately they haven't been too busy for obvious reasons. But I think it's interesting for the children also to learn about that, because they are talking about people that have completely different cultures, completely different cultural background, completely different means of life. Most of the time, they don't have anything when they come. So it's very important for them to get out of their little bubble and see what the world is like, and see that, wow, sometimes what you see on TV about the Muslims is not really what the religion is like. It's what people did with the religion. Same thing with Christianity, same thing with, people with disabilities. This is not what you think. Stereotyping is a huge thing that we do in our program, because people, you're Jewish, so you're like that. Oh, you're a Muslim, so you're like that. So you're disabled, so you're like that. So we want to get rid of that, and especially teach them how to stand up for others.
Absolutely. Don't be the bystander.
Exactly.
I've always taught my son, when you see bullying, whether he's here or there or everywhere else, either stand up or tell somebody.
Right. And we actually have a session doing just on that, though it's implied in all the other sessions.
And we do have actually former STOP participants that come and do little speeches about their experience with STOP and how STOP changed their lives. At the same time, Stephen mentioned the people actually facilitating the meetings are mostly junior facilitators, high school students that graduated from the program, and all of us are volunteers. We don't get paid. We ask for a $25 donation for the whole program per child. We have scholarship money available, but basically it's to cover our expenses, the pizza, things like that. So it's not about money, or it's not about all of that. It's about making people understand that it's a whole different ballgame. We are citizens of the world, and the world is a different place.
And it's up to the people that you're bringing in who volunteer to make a difference. You have to start, sometimes it takes a little to make a lot.
Right.
And I think what you, we have less than 4 minutes, but I think the STOP program, I wish I had one when I went to school in the 70s. Not sure why or how, I guess because it was just a majority population, majority culture was in control, but things change over the last 40, 50 years. Hopefully it still goes in that direction, even though the tide is on the fence right now. But it's programs like what you do, like STOP, that really could be very empowering, right? Very educational, right? Increasing awareness. I would like in the future to spread to elementary schools, not only here, but across the world. Because bullying does occur in elementary schools. It happens in preschool.
Sure.
And people don't want to know what happens. They're afraid. It's, again, it's the shame. It's the vulnerability. But I think what you do is great. In the time we have, can you tell people about when the program is starting and where they can go to register?
Of course. The first meeting of the program is February 1st, and the easiest way to register is through the website. And the website, can you tell them exactly what it is?
It's www.shrewsburystop.org. And the registration button is on the homepage, and there is a lot of information, a lot of resources, pictures from previous sessions you get to know. And it's very special to see children that are going to look at things they've never seen before, like when we went to Bnei Shalom and the rabbi opened and showed the Torah to kids that had never seen anything like that. So it's it's a beautiful thing.
I noticed that are there other cultures that you would like to reach out to, like Asian, Brazilian, other cultures that
We
you
sure
would.
And sometimes it's just we don't have the network in capacity or whatever. I obviously would like to see Latinos in the program. I've worked with them my whole life. Find them very easy to, I mean, they're my buddies.
Indians.
But we would love to have some Indians. We do get occasional member, but we'd love to have some Indians, and certainly some Chinese, and on and on. We'd like to have some people from the Eastern Orthodox community, which we haven't been able to reach.
And Caucasians.
Yet. And we would like to have many more Caucasians.
Interestingly enough, Caucasians are the smallest group in our program.
Well, they don't think it happens to them.
Exactly.
Or they're
Parents don't want to know that it happens to their children.
And if it does, they feel a lot of shame and they feel a lot of vulnerability.
And they don't want to know that maybe their children are the ones that are bullying others. Also, that's another issue.
Well, there are tons of issues, but it's available.
Right, we don't have time. We have less than a minute. So why don't you just give the website and phone number or anything?
It's easy. It's shrewsburystop.org. We're based here, but we address all the communities around. So, and Stephen is in charge of the logistics. I'm in charge of the marketing. So, but we are all there. The whole team is on the homepage. We have somebody for registration and curriculum and so on.
Yeah.
So just feel free. We have a Facebook page.
While we're focusing this discussion on Shrewsbury, because we're in Shrewsbury and STOP is focused there, we do happily accept students from as far away as they want to travel. Okay. The parents bring them to the sessions at the different locations. They carpool. It has never been a problem. The kids get to the sessions. They meet other parents. They arrange to team, what would be the verb? Bring them in as a team.
Carpool.
Carpool is probably the best word. We have some from as far as Leominster come down.
That's good.
So, the better the mix, the better.
Okay. Well, we're out of time, but I thank you, Sabina Terrades from the Wellspring United Methodist Church and Stephen Sadow from Congressional B'nai Shalom in Westboro. I'm Robbin Miller. Good night.